Hello, everyone, and welcome to our webinar today. I'm going to be chairing the webinar. I'm Paul from Engaging Networks. I'm the Senior Business Development Director here, and I've worked for the company for a few years now. If anybody has any kind of questions for me about the platform, about getting some of the things launched on the platform that we'll be talking about today, please do pop me a message. So we're going to be talking about, I think, a really important subject today. So I'm an ex-fundraiser. I worked for about 15 years in the fundraising space. And Christmas appeals were always an incredibly important part of our annual calendar. If you're anything like I was, you're probably deep into working on them now and worrying about whether the results are going to be what you want them to be. And I remember sending out huge numbers of packs, massive numbers of emails, and doing lots of other activities around Christmas to try to maximize income. And I think when I was a fundraiser, I'd have loved to have been able to attend a talk like this, focused on Christmas appeals with people who are real experts in their field, to give you some help and guidance and tips around getting an appeal out there and working in the best ways that it can for you and for your charity. So on that, I'm delighted to be joined today by Rebecca Turner from the Root Cause Collective. She's got a background in digital campaigning and as a fundraising strategist. And has also worked in the charity sector with charities like Age UK and the Fair Trade Foundation. So Rebecca's also co-founded Fundraising Space, which is a fantastic community of fundraisers supporting digital fundraising. So just a plug for Fundraising Space there. And also Catherine Joyce, who's a digital communications consultant, Root Cause Collective. And she's been working with charities across the sector to help them connect with new audiences. Before she was at Root Cause Collective, she also worked with a number of UK charities, including Refugee Action, the Children's Society, and Macmillan. So both of the panelists who'll be talking to you today have got a huge amount of experience with some brilliant organisations and some great experience also working at Root Cause Collective to share with you. So with that, thank you for coming along, and thank you to Rebecca and Catherine for talking to you today. I'm going to pass over to them just to make one last kind of point, or one repeated point. Any questions should go in the Q&A section at the bottom of the screen to help us keep things organised. So you don't need to hear any more from me. Pass over to Rebecca and Catherine. Thanks very much.
Thanks so much, Paul. Welcome, everyone. Thanks so much for joining us today for this webinar. Just to say at the top that the slides will be shared afterwards, and there will also be a recording shared, just in case that's a question, any burning question that somebody had. So don't worry about taking too many notes, because we will share the slides afterwards. So Paul's already done a great job of introducing us both, but just a really quick introduction to Root Cause Collective. So yeah, Catherine and I are both freelance consultants and members of Root Cause Collective, which we set up a few years ago now as an alternative to an agency. So we are Engaging Networks partner accredited, all the freelancers that work with us, and we're basically here for projects that require like more than one freelancer. So if you've got a sort of larger project that needs a sort of tailored team of different skill sets, then we're here to help you and build that team around you to help you campaign and fundraise more effectively. So enough about us, what's going to happen at today's webinar. So Catherine and I are going to share our top 5 tips for designing effective donor journeys for your Christmas appeals and beyond. And along the way, we're going to share some journey trends that we discovered when we made donations to 10 UK Christmas appeals last December. So just a quick clarification on what we mean by journey before we begin. So today, we're actually mainly going to be talking about the series of communications that you send post-donation. So this is all about those emails that you send after someone has given to your Christmas appeal. Don't panic if you were coming along hoping for some tips about how to improve those appeal communications. I think a lot of the tips we're going to share today will apply to that. So hopefully you'll still go away with some useful advice on how to improve your appeal emails too. Also, just to say that the focus of today will be mainly UK based, that's we gave to UK charities. So that's what we're going to be focusing on, because that's what our research is, what we looked into. But hopefully these tips and advice will still be useful if you are joining us from outside of the UK today, or you're watching back and you're from a country outside of the UK. So a little bit about the research we conducted. We did share this at the Engaging Networks conference earlier in the year. So if you came along to that, you will be seeing some of that again, but we are sharing more tips and strategic advice today than we did at that workshop earlier in the year, which was kind of a deep dive into that research. And if you'd like to see a bit more of a deep dive, then we can share those slides with you as well. Just get in touch and we'll share our email at the end. So last December, Friday the 20th of December 2024, we gave £10 to 11 different charities. Every charity that we gave to was running a Christmas appeal of some kind. And we found those donation pages through Meta ads. So these were appeals that were being actively advertised through Meta. So we opted in to receive emails when we made those donations and post, or we didn't actively opt out of post. We didn't leave a phone number or opt into phone. We didn't add gift aid, and we haven't crucially made any further donations, in that onward journey at all, just to keep things even. We've not really engaged too much with the content that we've sent, other than reading and looking at all of the emails and posts we received. So here are the organisations we donated to. Now, if you can see your organisation logo up here, please do not panic. When we shared this at the workshop earlier in the year, I could see a sea of faces, and there were some panic faces there. I think some organisations were in attendance, but we have completely anonymised the results, and we won't be calling anybody out today, except for some really nice examples that we've seen. So yeah, and if you are from one of these organisations and you'd like to know what your non-anonymised results are, then we'd be really happy to share those with you and talk to you about what we found as well. We've already done that with a couple of organisations seen here. So what did we analyse? We looked at 185 emails sent over 4 months. So this is what we mean when we talk about the journeys. So that was between the 20th of December and the 30th of April of this year. And we also looked at the 10 pieces of direct mail we received in the same time period. So kind of that early period of journeys, what we think is really the most crucial time to be really building that relationship and engagement with your donors, whether they're new or existing. So yeah, that's the time period we're looking at here. And there's a few examples on the screen of what kind of thing we received. And before we dive in today to the research, just a really quick content warning. So this is kind of a reminder to not be a lemming in your donor journey design. So we've got lots of results to share with you today, and we can identify some trends, but what we can't tell you, because we don't have the results of any of these journeys, is whether those trends are, going to guarantee you success. So just because there is a trend, it doesn't guarantee it's a successful strategy. And that's partly what we want to also address today with our tips and advice. So Catherine and I are going to share some approaches for how you can develop what we think should be a successful strategy based on best practice, based on what we've seen work for other organisations where we have seen results. Okay, before we dive in, we just wanted to talk to you guys first and see how you're getting along with your planning for your donor journeys, for your Christmas appeals. So Paul is going to launch a poll now. These questions that are coming up now for you to answer about your post-donation journey. So this is all about that welcome journey you're planning on sending, or maybe a thanking journey if it's for repeat donors once they've donated to your appeal. So I'll give you a couple of minutes now to answer these, I think 4 or 5 questions. And we can see how everyone in the room is getting on today and where we're all at. So our first question was, do you have a welcome or thanking journey planned for people who donate to your Christmas appeal? So the answers I provided were yes, no, or not sure. So maybe you can let us know in the chat. Do you have a welcome or thanking journey planned? I will open up the chat so I can see. Lots of yeses. This doesn't have to be a bespoke thing. This could be people going into your new donor journey, for example, but they're just going somewhere where they're being welcomed or thanked. So it seems like so far lots of people do, which is great to hear that something's planned. I'll just ask one more question and then we can move into our tips. And then we'll see if Paul can magically make a poll appear for the end, towards the end of the session or not, but it's not the end of the world. So if you did use a welcome or thanking journey last year for your appeal, have you evaluated it? So have you looked at those results and used them to inform this year's design? Yes, no, in the chat about that. Be great to see. I'm pleased to see some yeses. That's great news. Also, no problem if it's a no. We're often very strapped for time and moving on to the next thing a lot of the time. Great, can see some more yeses coming in, which is fantastic. All right, we'll see if we can get a poll going for the end, because I think it would still be great to ask you a few more questions about what your challenges are, how confident you are about using data, things like that, just so we can get a sense if there's shared challenges or shared successes in the room or not when it comes to designing donor journeys. So I'm going to hand over to Catherine. Sorry, Catherine, I'll get my hands off the mouse.
We're going to try and coordinate and I'm going to try not to be impatient and go too far too fast. So tip 1 is email new donors quickly and regularly, like Rebecca's already said. So in the donor journeys that we looked at last year, or the beginning of this year, we looked at how quickly organizations sent their first email. And not quite half of organizations sent the first email within 5 days, and then slightly more sent within 10 days. So the fastest follow-up was 1 day. The average follow-up was between 5 and 10 days, and the slowest follow-up, so the longest we had to wait for an email after making the donation, was 40 days. And 10 is kind of the average when you include the 2 organizations that had very long delays as well. And then in terms of how many emails organizations sent in total across the 4-month period, the average was about 16 emails, but you can see that there was a huge spread there if you look at that graph. So organization A sent 35, organization J sent 1. And actually, if you take out automated thank yous, so the emails that kind of automatically generate when someone makes a donation, then organization J sent no emails and organization C sent 1 email. So it's just a huge difference across the different organizations in terms of what people did after we made a donation. And then in terms of frequency, like how frequently people emailed us after we made the donation, the average time between email sends was nearly 7 days, and the median frequency is about 5 days. And when we looked at that per week and per month, you see the highest. So there were some organization that the highest volume was nearly 2 emails per week. And over a month, then the highest volume was 9. But on average, it was around 1 email a week and 4 emails per month. And then in terms of the pacing, we were interested in looking at, what happened because it's 4 months, is quite a long period of time after the donation. And I think probably like a lot of you do, the first 2 weeks is when we got the most emails most often. So in terms of the pacing of the emails, we got emails more frequently in the first couple of weeks. There was an average of around 3 days, 3 days between emails in those first 2 weeks. And then it started to lengthen out, kind of understandably, over the rest of the journey. And on average, then after that, there was around 7 days between emails that we got. So it kind of doubled after the initial first 2 weeks. So the most common approach was to send an email every 2 to 3 days, those at the beginning. So in terms of what that means for your donor journeys, this is a rough guide. You obviously know your audiences better than we do, and you know what works best and what has worked best for you in the past. But if you're looking for a place to start with a donor journey for Christmas appeal, and like Rebecca said, that can apply both before the appeal, like while you're trying to recruit donors, or afterwards when people have made their donation. And in terms of best practice and the trends that we saw across this, in general, I mean, the most important thing is email people fast. Like when they make their donation, they should get an email within a day from you, because that obviously just confirms not the automated email, but it obviously just reinforces your relationship with them at that crucial first moment just after they've done the thing. And then in the first 2 weeks, you want to be emailing them kind of regularly to build that relationship and get them opening and interacting with emails. So you want to be sending emails, maybe send 2 to 4 emails within the first 2 weeks. And then you want to stay in their inbox, right? So as the month goes on, the month after their donation goes on, you want to maybe email them once between once and 3 times in that period. And you can start to lengthen then the time between emails as well. So you see there at the bottom, we've put like in the first 2 weeks, maybe have 2 to 7 day gaps between the emails. That can kind of go up to 3 to 10 in weeks 3 to 4. And then onwards, you can decide. But the thing is, I think also to bear in mind that people are really busy, right? And if you take too long to email them after they've made a donation, there's every chance they might forget that they've done it, because we all do that. You get moved to do something in a moment, and if you don't hear from people, you might forget. And then if you get an email a month later, you might be like, well, why am I getting this email? Because you've forgotten the thing that you've done. So it's just about building that momentum and keeping that momentum going once people have decided to support you by making a donation. So this is a guide, no hard and fast rules, but some things that we kind of see come up consistently and that we think are really important to remember when you're designing donor journeys is to let the content and the context guide you when you're deciding on the send schedule and the schedule for your emails. Like obviously Christmas is a really important context. The festive period is a really important context. Um, and beyond Christmas as well, like the New Year is an important context. There's lots of like moments that you can make the most of, and you should think about those when you're thinking about what content you want to be sending people. But also it's important to not just send any old content just because you need to send more emails. Like quality really does count. And in terms of engagement, you really want to be thinking about what is it that your audiences will be interested in? What are the kind of things that are going to engage them? What will matter to them in terms of what will make them engage with your emails? And also to build that relationship of trust too, that after their initial donation, that over time they get to know the kind of content you're going to send. And that will make them more likely to engage. If that content is quality, they're more likely to keep engaging with you over time. And then do send emails connected to each other closer together. And this matters in the sense that, like I say, people are busy, right? They get a lot of emails and they get a lot of different content on things. If you have 2 emails and the theme or the content is kind of goes together, if you send those months apart, people will 100% have forgotten the first email by the time you send the second one, because we're all really busy and nobody is going to keep it all. They're not as tied to it as you are, obviously, because you're working on it every day. So just bear that in mind from an audience perspective. Like if there's something that you need people to kind of think about together, or something that builds a narrative that builds on itself, send those closer together. And also remember to remind people. So, using things like, as I said in my last email, or you might remember Joe's story from my last email. Remind people that what you've sent before. And then the last one, and this comes from our experience with the donations we made last year, is don't email a donor more than once in a day unless there's a really good reason to. So when we made our donations last year, one of the organizations we emailed sent 3 different emails at 5:17 p.m. on December 23rd. And those 3 different emails, one was a regular gift ask. One was an ask for the Christmas appeal again that we had just donated to. And the third one was another regular donation ask. And that felt very much like A, bombarding, and B, a mistake. Like it seemed like a glitch, because obviously those 3 emails kind of didn't make a lot of sense for the 3 of those to come in at exactly the same time on exactly the same day. And compared to that, we got from another organization on the 30th and 31st of December, we got a series of 4 emails, one in the morning and one in the evening on both days. But that was related to a match giving appeal that was ending on the 31st at midnight. And so it made sense in that context. It made sense to get those emails because there was a deadline looming, and it didn't feel quite as bombarding, because there was a reason, and an obvious reason that made sense to us. So it's just, again, thinking about that. If you're going to email people more than once a day, it's not that you shouldn't do it. It's just that it should make sense to the person reading the email why that's happening. And again, that's because context matters. And I will pass back to Rebecca.
Thanks, Catherine. Okay, so tip 2. Take the time to thank your donors before asking for more support. Now, this might sound really, really obvious, but from our research, from our sample organisation, 10 organisations that we gave to, not everybody's doing that. So we think it's worth reiterating. So of the 11 organisations that we gave to, we could identify that less than half sent what we would identify as a welcome journey. So by this, we just mean a series of emails in the first few weeks after we'd given, with content that was clearly connected to our donation, or the fact that we were new to the organisation and that we'd done this action of support. So, by no means a majority of people putting one of these in place at all. So we're not going to name names here, but to bring in the Christmas theme, on the nice list, so who were doing welcome journeys, were 4 organisations who clearly had a welcome journey that was connected to the Christmas appeal. It was, themed around the Christmas appeal campaign, and clearly, connected to our donation, which was really nice to see. And then one organisation clearly sent us on what we could identify as like their generic donor or new subscriber welcome journey. So it was clearly designed for anyone that had newly opted in, because actually it didn't mention our donation or the appeal. So kind of a half mark there, because it was obviously nice to have that, but it didn't reference the fact that we just given. On the naughty list, quite a few more organisations. So one organisation sent us absolutely no emails at all. In fact, to this day, we still haven't heard from them. One sent us 4 end-of-year fundraising asks. So we'd just given, and then that was what we next received. One sent a couple of thank you emails, and then in January sent us an email about ways to get involved this Christmas, which felt like it was potentially a mistake. And one sent us a thank you email and then just sent us their newsletter. So it was kind of clear we'd gone into, a big pot of people who were getting that. And then one just sent us a newsletter in early January. So no thank yous, just straight into a kind of a newsletter comms stream. And what was really interesting was analysing how often and how organisations and when organisations said thank you. So we could identify 35 thank you emails in total sent from these 11 organisations. So that accounts for about 20% of all emails sent. Interestingly, over 50% of these included another giving ask. So they weren't standalone thank you emails. They were thank you and please can we have some more money. The average time to say thank you was, I think, quite long. It was more than 2 weeks, 15.8 days. The fastest thank you was 3 days, and the slowest was 49 days after we'd given. And 64% of organisations said thank you more than once, which is great to see. And just to highlight some things in the table, but obviously you can have these slides to have a look in a bit more detail. Organisation A was the quickest to say thank you in 3 days, and they said the most thank yous. So we identified 7, but crucially, almost 3/4 of those came with another ask. So not very many that were just standalone messages of thanks. And then down at the bottom, we've got organisation J that sent no thank yous whatsoever, but also no emails whatsoever. Just above that, organisation K, below that, is organisation K, who sent 1 thank you email, but it had a giving ask, and it was 49 days after we'd given. Organisation F in the middle, so 5 thank yous, and their time to first thank you was 17 days, but crucially, none of those came with another giving ask, and they were all just thank yous. So a real range in there in terms of thanking. But what does that mean for your donor journey planning for your Christmas appeals this year? So the first thing is kind of from a data perspective, I guess. So we would really recommend considering setting up an automated welcome or thanking journey if you haven't already, specifically for your appeal donors. So not a generic one, sending people into a generic one that is tailored with content that connects to your Christmas appeal. Appreciate if you haven't got time, then the next best thing is something that potentially is a little bit more broad-based and generic. That's absolutely fine. That's definitely better than having nothing at all. And And this is because, this period post-donation is really the golden opportunity for you to build that relationship with your donors. And automations are just a great way to guarantee that this happens in a really timely and appropriate way. And crucially, just make sure that you've got the right segmentation so that people are in this automation, particularly if you're building it in engaging networks, you can make sure that people don't receive anything else. And so that you're not sending two regular giving asks 3 days after they've given at 5, but 20 past 5 on the 23rd of December, because that's not going to necessarily go down well with people. So yeah, these are great because you can set up different ones for whether they're an existing donor that's donated again or a new supporter. You can exclude people, especially from receiving those further giving asks in that short time period afterwards. And we would recommend considering keeping this automation quite short. So maybe 7 to 10 days, but again, be led by your insights and what you know best. And then you can adapt, pause or stop it over the festive period as appropriate. So I always say to people, look at what's in that journey. If someone received one of those emails at 9 a.m. on Christmas Day, is that okay? If it is, then keep it on. If it's not, then you might want to consider taking that email out, adapting, pausing, whatever works best for you. But just think about the context, given that people will be donating right up and potentially after Christmas, how those emails are going to feel in people's inboxes in that sensitive time period, sort of Christmas Eve to after New Year's. And then in terms of content, what does this mean? So again, really think through how you can say thank you in a way that's going to really resonate with your donor in that welcome period. It doesn't have to be automated. So some tips, say thank you meaningfully more than once without another ask. It's not that you can't put other asks in, and it's particularly if you have insights that people, you can upgrade people to a regular gift quite quickly in that period, do it, but just make sure not every time you say thank you, it's thank you and another ask. So yeah, just think very carefully about what further support you ask for in those early weeks, and make sure you're kind of being insight driven in how you do that. Prioritize content that is relevant and interesting to your donors. So really focus on engaging them, and really pay attention to what your email results and wider data insights tell you. So if you tried to upgrade people to regular giving last year and it wasn't really working, maybe think about not doing that this year and trying later in the year, for example. So here, there's just a little bit about how you can tell if you are really prioritizing content that's relevant to your donors. So think about being engaging content, not asking content. So asking tends to be very org focused. It's about your needs. It's about what your support that you want. So it's things like support us again or help us improve. So I think we got a invitation to join a 2-hour focus group less than a month into one of our donor journeys. And it felt a bit like a really big ask, given we were kind of a new donor and we just donated. So that's the sort of thing where you think, okay, maybe we should exclude people from receiving that kind of thing. So engagement is much more donor focused. So it's about, can we learn more about you, and showing interest? Can we connect you with someone you've supported? So some impact storytelling. Tell us a bit more about yourself, or sharing something, reciprocity, giving something to say thank you for the fact that they've donated. Just to bring that to life about what engagement looks like in comparison to asking, here are some examples that we spotted in the journeys that we think are really nice. So a really lovely email here from Sense, which is kind of around the theme of connect with someone you've supported. So it's inviting you to say congratulations to Ricky, because he is getting ready for his first day of paid employment. So a really nice way of connecting us as donors to someone we've supported with our donation. And then a quiz example from International Rescue Committee. So take this quick 2-minute quiz to test your knowledge of the places many refugees call home. So learning more about what we're supporting through our donation. A nice poll from Refuge. This was quite early in the welcome journey that we received a poll. So tell us what your best Christmas gift ever was when you were a child and why. It's really interested in finding out more about us. And then another nice one from Crisis, which again was kind of in the earlier journey into the new year. Something to say thank you from them, which was a 15% voucher for discount to use in their online shop, and the code was thank you, which I thought was a really nice touch. So a few examples there of kind of engaging content that you can put out. Oh.
I did it again. Sorry.
So yeah, back to
Too
Catherine for tip
quick on the,
3.
yeah. So tip 3, and kind of linked to what Rebecca is saying there about thanking and not always thanking and then asking for more support. And this is then, so following on from that, be strategic about when and how you ask for more support. So in terms of the organizations that we donated to, we got a lot of different financial support asks after the initial cash donation. And the most popular was asking for another one-off donation. So 9 out of 10 organizations, nearly all organizations, asked for another one-off donation. The one that didn't was obviously the people who didn't email us at all after. So we just didn't hear from them. 7 out of 10 organizations asked for a regular gift. 6 out of 10 invited to take part in a fundraising challenge or an event. The same number shared will writing or leaving a legacy information with us. And then less popular in terms of not so many organizations did it, but 4 organizations asked us to play raffle or lottery. 4 asked us to make purchases from their online shop. And then 2 asked us to donate in memory of someone. And in terms of the amount of time that passed before organizations asked for further support, Rebecca mentioned there, the quickest one was 3 days. And the longest time to a first ask was 105 days. So quite a big variation in that, obviously, but making the average time about 48 days. And in terms of those one-off donations, we're excluding one-off donations that came in kind of PS donate asks, etc. They were full call to action emails that where the call to action was a one-off donation. The quickest time for a regular gift ask was 3 days, and the longest was 62 days. For fundraising event, it was 10 days before we got that ask the first time, and then 131 days was the longest. So you can see there, I mean, I won't go through them all, but you can see the kind of average time varied by the asks. 55 days was the longest average time to an ask, and that was for will writing. And 26 days was the shortest average time to an ask, and for regular gift, obviously, regular gift upgrading being quite an important thing, I know, for donor journeys in general. So 61% of all the emails we got had a giving ask. And again, I think what we're not saying that that's necessarily a bad thing, but it's about the balance. And it's about the balance of, the balance of content that people are getting from you. So what we found is the majority of organizations sent more emails with a giving ask than emails without. 7 out of the 10 organizations that sent us journeys, over 61% of their emails had a financial ask, and only 2 organizations sent us more emails without giving asks than with. So you can see again, their organization E was one of the few organizations where 80% of their emails didn't have a giving ask, and only 20% of their emails did. But you can see then as well, further down, organization K, 74%. So the vast majority of their emails also didn't have a giving ask, 26% did. But if you look at the balance in other organizations, so organization A that sent the most emails in total, they had kind of they lent more towards giving ask. So 65% of their emails had a giving ask, 35% didn't. And again, we're not saying that that's necessarily a bad thing, but what we're saying is, in terms of your donor journey, tailored comms is really what you want to be doing. So you want to be strategically thinking about when you ask people for money and how you ask them to give again. And you want to be trying to base that on insights that you have about what's worked well in the past for you. So rather than kind of putting everyone into one bucket and just taking the same approach to them, really try and think about it. And so the kind of key points to that is, what do your results, again, like I said, your audiences better than anyone. So from previous experience, what do your results and donor insights tell you about when and how people want to support you again? And then how do you use that insight to shape your donor journey and to think about, what's the best time to ask someone? What's the best way to ask someone? So for example, someone who makes a cash donation, like a €10 or £10 cash donation, like we did before Christmas in a Christmas appeal. If you want them to take part in a cold swim in January, and you know that some of those people who've made the donation before Christmas have taken part in previous events, you ask them in a much different way. It's a much more, you did this before, it's really exciting, we're doing it again, we'd love you to be part of it, versus somebody who's never taken part in a fundraising event. And it might be that you you say thank you again, not your main thank you, but you say thank you again, and you say, by the way, if you like swimming, if this is the kind of thing that you're into, we have this event coming up and we'd love to see you there. And it's subtle, but it just changes kind of how you approach it based on what you know about people. If you don't have those insights, because like Rebecca said earlier as well, we don't always have time for evaluation, and sometimes our data isn't so easy to wrangle into insights. Test strategically and learn quickly. You can build that into your planning for your donor journeys now for post-Christmas or in the run-up to Christmas as well. And just test things and see how people respond, and then implement that quickly as well as the donor journey goes on into the new year. And if you're struggling to get second gifts, then the kind of things that we would always suggest trying are things like daisy chaining, which you're probably doing anyway. And you can see some good examples of that there from Sense and Refuge. So from Sense, they had asked us to send an inspiring message to Owen and his family, based on a story they had told us about Owen. And then they tied that to a donation ask after we'd done the action. And similarly, Refuge had asked us to share our feelings about back to school, and that whole series. So again, bringing in context and time of year and referencing that in a useful way, and then they pivot that to a donation ask, and that makes sense because it is, there is lots of evidence across the sector of people testing that and finding that people are more likely to donate if they've done something else first, if they've been engaged in an interesting way first. You can also try soft PS asks, or also using Engaging Networks, the next suggested gift feature, which allows you to dynamically populate the amount, like a prompt amount in your emails based on someone's previous donation. And that's a really useful way, again, to tailor your email comms to what someone has done before, to reference what they've done before, but then also base what you're asking them for next on that. And then a key thing that we see happen, but is not the best way to make it work, is don't send multiple or different financial asks in one emails, because like all of us, if you get too many decisions to make it in one go, you're not going to make any decision, you get paralysis. So one email, one ask ideally. And if direct to donate asks aren't working, then try the other kind of approaches, the slightly softer approaches. And then one quick way that you could maybe optimize your donation asks in your donor journeys this year is, like I say, acknowledge the past donations when you're asking for another. So in the emails that we got last year, 6 out of 10 organizations mentioned their previous donations when they asked for another gift, the majority, which is great. But only 3 out of the 7 organizations that asked us for a regular gift referred to our previous gift. And most importantly, nobody did it consistently or across all types of financial asks. And that just seems like a really missed opportunity, because again, if you think about why people, like all of us, why we do something, there's kind of the principles of influence. And the biggest one is we like to be consistent with our past selves. Like if we've done something before, we are more likely to do it again because it fits with our image of ourselves and who we want to be. So if you remind people, you made this £10 gift before Christmas and it made such a huge difference, can you make a regular donation and make an even bigger impact? That kind of brings us back to what we've done before and helps us to see why we might want to do it again. And then I know we've really hammered the thanks point, but I think really can't hammer it enough because we want to say yes to people we like. And why do we like people? We like people because we find them interesting, but also mostly we like people because of how they make us feel, because they are interested in us, they make us feel seen, they make us feel valued, they make us feel appreciated. Emails are no different, and your relationship with donors is no different to how we are in the world. If someone likes the organization, likes the cause, and likes how you make them feel, they are much more likely to keep engaging and to keep to donate again after they've made their initial donation. And so saying consider segmentation every time you send an email, which can sound scary because it sounds like a lot of work, and completely appreciate that. But the kind of key points to this, I think, rather than like making it, you don't need to segment every email within an inch of its life. It doesn't have to be a huge, huge piece of work. But we would always start with include your segmentation as part of your email brief. So when you're actually thinking about your email content, just have a mind to and make it part of the planning process for that email is how can we tailor this email to specific audiences? Which specific audience do we have? So we have new donors, we have cash donors, we have regular donors. Like if we were going to tailor this email to those different groups, how would we do it? And that brings us to the second point. You don't have to personalize the whole email. You can use something like Ian's conditional content tool, just means you can tailor sentences, paragraphs, or the call to action. So again, it doesn't have to be all or nothing. It can be small tweaks. And it can be small tweaks that's as simple as, your recent donation of £10 or, your ongoing regular gift of X. And just that one sentence can make such a difference to how people feel about the organization when they get that email. And then, yes, so like I said about the next gift tool in EN, do consider using specific donation amounts that are similar to the last donation amount. So if you can work your data, and especially that tool, if you can make the ask amounts tailored to what people have previously given, then that's a really powerful way, again, to personalize the email. And then because segmentation does take a little bit of extra time and work, it doesn't have to be massive, but it does take some extra time and work. Don't forget to evaluate it and see if it's working for you. And if it's not making a massive difference on the emails that you send or the responses that you get to the emails you're sending, then rethink it, because obviously you want to kind of be building your program in a way that is sustainable and in the way that has the biggest impact for the organization. So I'll hand back to Rebecca.
Catherine, okay, nearly at the end of our tips, and then we can take some questions. So last but one tip 4, stop making your donors' impact all about you. So this again might seem obvious, but and as fundraisers, we all know that the key to success is connecting people to their impact that their donation is going to have or has had. But when we read these 100+ emails we received, this is something we saw happening again and again, was organizations making it all about them and not about donors. So, while everyone wasn't doing it all the time, no one wasn't doing this. It was a bit like playing whack-a-mole, looking at people's email content and copy with these 2 bad habits that crept up. So we've really noticed that impact storytelling is just too organization-centered, not donor-centered enough, and that impact storytelling is just too focused on telling, not enough on showing. So an example to bring this to life, not gonna show anybody's email content. I've produced an example based on if we were an organization asking for gifts. So this uses phrases and language that we saw used a lot. So see if you can spot what's going wrong with this. So thank you for your donation to Root Cause Collective's Christmas Appeal. Your donation of £10 is helping us to work with the organizations to improve their donor journeys. Thanks to supporters just like you, Root Cause Collective is able to ensure that organizations don't send rubbish donor journeys. Without gifts like yours, we simply wouldn't be able to be there for the fundraisers that need support to improve their communications. We are continuously inspired by the stories of the fundraisers Root Cause Collective supports to smash their fundraising targets. Thank you for supporting us. We know that together we can end bad donor journeys for good. So the crucial problem is that this is all about us. It's not about the donor. So you can spot this happening if you've got too many mentions of your organization's name in an email. I think I got one that was maybe 150, 200 words, but it used the org's name 7 times in that short space. If you've got us and we in there a lot and not a lot of yous, you're probably being too org focused. And the story told here is that they're supporting you to have incredible impact, which, while it might be true, is not focused enough on the donation, like them having the incredible impact. You're kind of getting in the way of that story. This is what donor-centered impact storytelling would look like instead. So thank you so much for your donation of £10 to improve donor journeys. Your support is making sure organisations don't send rubbish donor journeys. Generous gifts like yours mean even more fundraisers can get the support they need to improve their communications and smash their fundraising targets. Because of your support, I know that together we can end bad donor journeys for good. So a little tongue in cheek there with the copy, but hopefully it brings to life that fewer mentions of your name, taking out us, using lots of you and yours, and crucially just connecting the impact that the donor is having directly to them. So your donation has improved donor journeys because of your support. This is happening. It's just much more compelling, and crucially a lot more concise. I was surprised that when I rewrote this email, hey, taking out all those words makes a big difference to getting that message across much more concisely. So then quickly, telling versus showing. So the other bad habit we spotted, again, it's something we all know as fundraisers, but it really does creep in. So how can you spot if you're telling too much, and how can you make sure you switch to showing? So if you're telling the donor about your impact, you'll tend to see in your email copywriting and content quite a lot of facts and stats that tend to be quite dry, not a lot of story. You're writing as your organization and sending from your organization. So just a sort of faceless entity can creep into quite corporate jargony speak with that. Top line case studies written in the third person. Storytelling by people impacted is sometimes or often quite passive and anonymized. And calls to action content can sometimes really feel like homework. I notice this creeping in a lot. It's like learn more, tell me more, find out more. It's not very donor centered in terms of sparking curiosity. Meanwhile, showing is much more emotive, personal, conversational storytelling. Writing in the first person, so emails from I'm writing to you today. Crucially from a person, so you've got a sender name, you've got a photo, you know who that person is. Individual stories from people's own experience. And then crucially, like some of the examples we showed earlier, using creative, engaging ways to connect donors to the impact of their donation, and calls to action that kind of spark curiosity or feel purposeful. So yeah, could be take this quiz, tell us more about yourself, things like that. And this is a really nice example from Refuge that we got quite early in our journey, just to show the example of showing impact. I won't go into it in too much detail because I'm conscious of time and we want to take your questions, but this is all about, this is from somebody that works at Refuge. It's in the first person. It uses inclusive language, and it crucially connects the donor directly to their impact with things like, this was all brought on by you and your amazing gifts. This was all down to you. So an example for you to read through after if you want to see showing brought to life. A final tip on showing impact is just about thinking who the storyteller of your email is, who you're sending your email from. So this is one of my favorite bits of research that happens every year. I don't know how familiar people are with it, but it's the Ipso Mori Veracity Index. So they go out and to a sample size of the British public, and they say, who is it that you generally trust to tell the truth or not? And it's always fascinating to see where people land. So some of the results are not so surprising and some more so. So you can see politicians generally at the bottom, not particularly surprising to see. You can see charity chief executives in the middle at 51%. So this isn't me saying don't send from your charity chief executive, but it's also thinking about who else you might be able to send stories from that might be able to connect with your donors in a more compelling way. Because at the top there, you've got nurses, engineers, doctors, professors, teachers. There's also scientists, the ordinary man, woman in the streets. And I know lots of charities will have those people working as part of their support service or whoever that might be. And just think about, who could you get to tell your stories that might connect a bit more when you're thinking about showing and telling. Okay, one quick thing you could do. So if you've already planned your journey, you're not in a place now to think about different content or anything like that, because it's about to go live in the next few weeks. Get the basics of personalization right. Again, might seem really obvious, but we found that only 4 in 10 organizations that sent us an email journey used first name data consistently across it. And then of the 5 organizations that sent direct mail, no one used personalization consistently across that. So the gist of this is stop calling me friend, because we know we've given you our first name. So please use it. We saw some really wild stuff going on, like people using my first name because I was the one that gave the donation in a subject line, but then in the email calling me supporter or friend. So it's like, well, you've got it in one place. Why is it not in another? So just use a seed list, test again with your automations and things, just to make sure that data is coming through, because nothing undercuts your lovely content if you've thought about it really carefully than not having that first name or salutation used correctly in either channel. So choose a format, make it consistent, use seed lists, test. And obviously, I know sometimes this relies on data. Try and make sure it's up to date when you want to send emails. Using engaging networks as your donation and email platform solves this really well, because the data is going in there. You know it's there the moment they've made the donation, but that will help. But yeah, if you do one thing this Christmas, please test that your salutations and first names are coming through correctly. All right, Catherine, a whistle stop.
Okay.
So
Yeah, I'm gonna whip through this because it's not a big point. But basically, integrate your email with direct mail and other channels. Think about the full experience of the supporter at the heart of all the comms that you're sending. I'm not going to spend much time on this. We got 10 letters. Majority of them were focused on donation ask, 30% on thank yous. Only 2 of the letters that we got mentioned our donation specifically, one with the actual amount and one just that we gave before Christmas. And then in terms of only one organization also mentioned that we would be getting a pack in the email they sent us. And we didn't get that pack in the end, but that might have been a postal fault. So not holding that against them. But only one actually said you might get a pack. So what does that mean for your donor journey? Really what we're trying, I think the main point for us in that was be channel first. So in how you design and integrate your donor journeys. So if someone has given you consistently via online donations and they are on your email list and they open emails, etc., bring that into your thinking when you're planning direct mail. Don't treat them like all other direct mail donors, because it can mean the direct mail doesn't feel very personal to them. So for example, if you're not referencing the fact that they made a donation online, or you're kind of ignoring the fact that they largely engage online and you're sending them the same pack as everyone gets. So it comes back to tailor your comms based on the insights you have about your donors. And also, which channel are you choosing? If someone has literally only ever donated online, they've only ever engaged via email, and you're sending them direct mail, do you need to be doing that? Is it actually working for you? You're spending money to send them packs. Does it make a difference, or actually should they not be getting those packs just because you have their address? And then also timing direct mail more carefully. So just, again, making sure new donors are thanked meaningfully before they get a mistimed direct mail asking for them for money again. So again, it's just about tailoring. It's about thinking about the donor experience and what you want people to feel when they get the comms from you after making their first donation. And that's it. I'm going to stop there so that we have time for questions. Thank you.
Brilliant. Thank you, Rebecca and Catherine. That was incredibly interesting. There were some really surprising things you brought up in there. Just to everyone in the room, if you want to pop questions in the Q&A, that would be fantastic. I'm going to take the chair's prerogative and ask you kind of an initial question. There were lots of things that you talked about there that really did surprise me. For you guys, what was the biggest surprise that you came across as you moved through these donor journeys? And was there a kind of pattern that you didn't really expect to see, but ended up seeing?
Really good question. I think I was surprised by things like personalization. I thought everybody would be consistently getting that right. So yeah, that was quite surprising. I mean, also it's a small sample, right, out of all the charities in the UK, but we obviously wanted to choose some bigger ones that were and a variety there. So I was surprised from that sample actually that so few were getting it consistently right. Catherine, was there anything particularly that stuck out for you?
Yeah, I'm not sure I mean, I think just the amount of time some emails or some organizations took for a start to thank, I think that I was surprised by that, because I didn't think that that would be the case. I kind of thought that thanks would come in fairly fast. But to be honest, all of it is stuff that I think I've seen happen over years and years and years. And again, it's a small sample, but I think it does speak to things that happen, especially like the personalization. I've had, I've been on email lists where they've called me Joyce for years, even though I fill in petitions and hand raisers and donations and like correct it every time the data somehow gets messed up. And I mean, I understand that because data is difficult and it is complicated. Um, and I think, yeah, I think for me that the main kind of thing I take from it is, we are all really busy, and I get it, like organizations, especially around Christmas, really busy, but I'm surprised by I just, yeah, my wish is that we would have a sense of the relationship and the ongoing relationship we want to create with new donors. And I was surprised by some of the comms we got that just didn't feel like that was the purpose or the focus. It felt very organization first and not very bring us in and, together we can do things. I was surprised by that.
Yeah, that's really good. Thank you. And I think for me, the one of the things that really stood out, there was a piece of work that I did at a charity, or one of my team did at a charity years ago, around when we got second gifts and when we got people unsubscribable laps. And we had like you don't ask a regular giver for a second gift for like 3 months. You don't ask a cash donor for like 2 months. And getting asks shocked me during that journey because it just makes sense, especially if it's the first time you've ever given. Asking for a second gift just seems quite forward, and especially asking someone to write a will, that's incredible. That's for your like most engaged supporters, so that's a real surprise for me. So I think that's really useful, and I think everyone in the room probably I hope will go away and just look at those journeys and think about what they're asking people to do. The refuge example was really nice, asking people to just kind of deepen their engagement a bit, and give a bit more information. So I think there's some great examples there. Cool. So I haven't got any questions through on the chat. So if anybody has any kind of final things that they'd like to ask, please do kind of now or forever hold your peace. A huge thank you to Rebecca and Catherine for giving us their time today and giving us so much insight and so much information. It was really interesting and I think really, really useful. Quick calls to action. If there's anything that you've seen, if there's anything you've seen today that you'd like to be able to replicate in engaging networks, or anything that any function that we've talked about that you'd like to kind of dig into a little bit more deeply, I'm sure both Rebecca and Catherine would be happy to speak to you. But we've also got our account success managers and our support team. So they'd be more than happy to speak to you to tell you how the tool can kind of help improve your journeys and help personalize thanking. And if you aren't on Engaging Networks and you're interested in learning a bit more about the platform, please do drop me a line. I'm Paul at engagingnetworks.net, or just drop me a message on LinkedIn and I'll get back to you. But thank you very much for your time today, and a huge thank you to Rebecca and Catherine again. I hope you have a great rest of your day and a good week.